One of the biggest concerns you have whenever you start bow hunting is, when do I draw my bow when the deer comes by? On TV and on YouTube and everywhere else that you watch deer hunting or the celebrity deer hunters, it always seems to look a lot easier than it really is. But whenever you've bow hunted for a while, especially mature deer, bucks, does, it doesn't matter, you realize that's not always the case. In my bow hunting experience, there's about 3 ideal ways that you can get your bow drawn on a deer at an ideal time. The absolute best time to get your bow drawn on a deer is when there's something blocking their vision. So that can be that they walked behind a tree, that can be that they walked through a shooting lane behind an obstruction of some sort, whether that's some brush or anything like that. It could be that you're setting in a ground blind and they walk by your corner post or the wall of your ground blind and you have an opportunity to get your bow drawn. That's the best case scenario, is letting them walk behind something that obstructs their vision, get your bow drawn, and then when they walk out into that shooting lane again, you can make the shot. One thing that can be challenging with that, and I've had this experience with the biggest buck I ever killed, sometimes they can trick you and they go to walk behind a tree and you go to draw your bow and then they stop behind the tree and stay there for the longest time and you're standing there at full draw. So you do need to practice during the off season at drawing your bow, being able to stay at full draw for 30 seconds, 1 minute, as long as you can. Ideally, you have a bow that has a really solid back wall. That's one of my preferences when it comes to a bow. By back wall, I mean you can hold it full draw and it's not feeling spongy. It's not feeling like it's going to, creep forward on you. It stays really solid and you can hold there for a long period of time. They can also trick you by walking behind that obstruction. You come to full draw, and then whenever they step out, they're not presenting a good broadside or quartering away shot, and you still have to wait for them to get there. But if you've practiced holding it full draw, they'll hopefully get to a place more times than not that you can make a shot pretty quickly after coming to full draw. The second best time is when they have turned their head the other way. So yes, deer have great sense of smell, they have great hearing, their vision is arguably not that great as far as colors and things like that, but they can pick up movement. Now, when they step out even at 20 yards, if they turn their head away from you, their vision, their peripherals are good, but they're not going to be able to see as well as if obviously they're looking in your general direction or out of the side in their peripherals. If they look away, that's a great time to get your bow drawn, even if there's not something between you and them. I have certain stands where I don't have a lot of brush, I don't have a lot of tree limbs or anything that's obstructing, that's giving me a shooting lane to get into. The whole thing ends up being a shooting lane in front of me. So you do have to look for these times where they turn their head as an opportunity to get drawn. Obviously, the more deer that are in the field or in front of you at the time, more eyes that can see you, and that makes it more challenging. But if it is a single deer, they turn their head, that's usually a pretty good time to get your bow drawn on them too. And the third one that I can think of is when they're moving. Now, when they're standing still, nothing around them is moving. So if they do catch some movement while they're standing still, they're going to be more likely to catch you drawing your bow. If they're moving and walking along, that's an opportunity where they're walking along and everything next to them is moving, and so a little bit of extra movement from a hunter drawing his bow, it may not be picked up as easily as if they're standing still. So those are my 3 times that I think are the best to get drawn on a deer. Obviously, number 1 being when they walk behind an obstruction of some sort. Number 2, when they have their head turned away from you. And number 3, when they're on the move. One footnote or asterisk I'll add to that when they're on the move is always try to get that deer to stop. I've covered this in other videos too, but don't take the shot whenever the deer is moving. There's too many variables in place, especially if they're moving at 20 yards or beyond that. Your margin for error just becomes that much greater if they're moving. So just if you can come to full draw while they're moving and you can give them that fake grunt, or some sort of noise that gets them to just stop for just that split second, you can get that pin on them, make the shot, and hopefully have a short track job. Thank you for watching Farming for Whitetails. We'll see you next time. In my bow hunting experience, I found that there's about 3 opportune times to get your bow drawn on a bow.